My parents told me, "Don't come to Christmas Eve dinner. Your daughter makes us look bad. Your sister needs a drama-free night." My 6-year-old daughter and I were already on our way to the airport. I didn't cry, I turned around, and when my parents saw us again, the color drained from their faces. I still remember the exact moment I felt my stomach drop to the floor. My hands were on the wheel, the road ahead, and Inés in the back, hugging her stuffed fox. We were heading to the Querétaro International Airport. It was December 23rd. It was cold, the sky was gray, and traffic was moving just enough to make me think we'd arrive on time. Inés had been counting down the days to the trip for weeks. For her, going to her grandparents' house in Monterrey was Christmas, a birthday, and a school trip, all in one. "Do you think Emilio will want to play with me this time?" she asked. Emilio was my sister Sandra's son. 7, and treated Inés like a toy he could set aside whenever he got bored. "I'm sure he will," I told her. With that voice we moms use when we lie to avoid breaking a dream ahead of time. "And Paula is going to show me her new doll," Inés continued. Paula was 9, she was Sandra's daughter, and already looked at other children as if she were reviewing a restaurant. Inés was humming softly. She had made place cards at school with our names and drawings of poinsettias. She talked about Grandma's house as if it were a safe place full of cookies and hugs. In her backpack she also carried a drawing for my dad, a folded sheet with a Christmas tree and 3 little stick figures holding hands. I had seen it that morning and didn't know how to tell her that in this family we were almost never all holding hands. I just told her that Grandpa would like it. I also wanted to believe it, not like a child, but with that weary hope that maybe this year everyone would behave like adults during dinner. My cell phone rang. Mom appeared on the screen, Anna. I smiled out of habit before, remembering that with my mom it was never a good idea to let your guard down. "Hello," I answered, putting the call on speaker because I was driving. "Hello, Norma," said my mom. Her tone was careful. Too careful? I glanced in the rearview mirror. Inés was calm, looking out the window. "Hi, Mom. We're already on our way to the airport. I think we'll make the flight." "Listen," she interrupted me. My fingers tightened on the steering wheel right then. "We've been talking," she said. "And we think it's better if you don't come this year." I blinked, as if I had misheard. "What?" "It's just that," she continued, with a calm that froze me. "Your daughter makes us look bad. We don't want her here. Sandra needs a night without drama." For an instant I couldn't even breathe. I only understood that if I kept driving, I would lose control, not of the car, but of myself. I turned on the hazard lights and pulled over as best I could. The car sped past at full speed. The noise of the highway seemed to come from very far away. From the back came the voice of Inés. "Mom." My mom kept talking on the speakerphone, but my mind locked onto a single thought. Inés had heard it. I turned off the speaker immediately. "Mom," I said through gritted teeth. "I'm driving. Inés is in the car. We are on our way to the airport. What are you saying?" "You heard me," she replied. "It's better this way." I looked in the rearview mirror again. Inés was no longer moving her feet. She was still with the fox pressed to her chest. I didn't trust my voice to continue in front of her. "Wait for me," I said for a second. My darling. My love. Keep your seatbelt on. I'm right out here by the door." I got out of the car. Cold air hit my face. I closed the door and picked up the phone. "Now," I said. "Say it again." My mom didn't even try to soften it. "Sandra doesn't want stress. She has guests tomorrow. We are not going to do this." "Guests?" Arturo invited his boss and some partners, as if that made him noble. As if Christmas Eve were a work commitment and my daughter, something to be hidden before the visitors arrived. "So Inés, is she what?" I asked. "A bad look?" My mom made that sound of annoyance she always made when I named what she wanted to hide. "Don't start. I'm not starting, I'm clarifying. You just told me that my 6-year-old daughter embarrasses you." She'll get over it, she said, as if talking about a scrape. A truck drove by close, and the wind tugged at my coat. I stared at the back door of the car. Through the glass, I could see the stuffed fox pressed to Ines's chest. She wasn't crying. That scared me more than if she had been. We already have flights, I said. We are on our way to the airport. Well, not anymore. Sandra needs a night without drama. There it was again. Without drama, as if my daughter were a problem that had to be removed from the house before the others arrived. So that's it. It's better this way, my mom said. We'll see you another time. I waited for the part where she would say, I'm sorry. It didn't come. She hung up. I stared at the dark screen. Then I called the person whose comfort apparently decided the family calendar. Sandra answered quickly. What? She said, already annoyed. Did you tell Mom not to let us come get Ines? There was a pause. Then a sigh meant to make me feel ridiculous. Norma, I have guests tomorrow. Guests? I repeated. Toro invited important people from his work. I don't want it to become uncomfortable. I felt the cold seep under my clothes. You didn't want questions. The silence answered before she did. I don't want a scene, she said at last. My daughter exists. If that ruins your dinner, the problem isn't her. See? Sandra exploded. This is exactly what I mean. You turn everything into a drama. That's why nobody can deal with you. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't try to teach empathy to someone who had always treated it like an elective subject. Understood, I said. I hung up before she could answer. I stood by the car for a few seconds, breathing. Then I got back in. Ines looked at me immediately. Children do that when they don't yet have enough words to grasp the full blow. I forced myself to put on a calm face. Hi, my love. Ines didn't hesitate. They don't love me. My throat tightened. No, I said as a reflex. Tell me no, she replied with a broken voice. I heard her. Grandma said I'm an embarrassment. I looked at the road. The blinkers kept flashing, constant. I'm sorry, I said. The word came out raspy. Ines hugged the fox tighter, as if she had to protect it too. I saw the signs for the airport and understood something with a clarity that left me still. I could still make that day ours. I turned. Ines didn't speak for a good while. That silence weighed on me more than any complaint. I took her to a small ice cream shop near a quiet avenue because I couldn't think of what else to do with a broken heart and a girl who still believed in grandparents. Choose whatever you want, I told her. 2 scoops. She looked at me. With sprinkles, with lots of sprinkles. We sat by the window. Ines looked at her ice cream, but didn't eat it. I canceled the flights as best I could later, without checking too closely what I was losing. At that moment, I didn't care about the money. I cared that Ines would never have to hear a sentence like that from the back seat again. At the next table sat an older couple, their daughter, and a girl about Ines's age. They were together in a simple way, as if no one had to earn their place. My throat tightened and I looked away. The older lady leaned in a little. She didn't do it with morbid interest, or that curiosity disguised as concern one learns to recognize. She did it like someone who saw a little girl trying to cry over a sprinkle-covered ice cream. Are you okay? I opened my mouth to say yes. Nothing came out. Ines sniffled quietly, as if trying not to be a bother. The lady looked at her, then looked at me. Would you like to sit with us? A moment before I could answer, the girl from their table climbed down from her chair. My name is Mia, she said. Do you like unicorns? Ines blinked. Yes, come on. I have a bracelet. Ines asked for my permission with her eyes. Go, I told her. And she went with Mia toward a small table for kids, as if her body remembered for a moment what it was like to play. The lady smiled. I am Beatrice. He is Guillermo, and she is our daughter Jimena. Jimena? Norma, I said. And she is Ines. Beatrice didn't question me. She just looked over where the girls were already talking about unicorns. "Your girl has such a noble little face," she said. Guillermo slid a napkin toward me without making it obvious. Jimena gave me one of those looks that doesn't intrude but offers company. "December can be tough," she said. I let out a breath. That's a kind way of putting it. Beatriz watched me carefully. "You don't have to tell me anything. But if you want to talk, we're here." I should have said I was tired, that thank you, that nothing was wrong, but for the first time in a long while I didn't have the strength to pretend. "We were going to fly to Monterey to spend Christmas Eve with my family," I said. "And my mom called to tell us not to come." Beatriz stayed still. Jimena lowered her voice. "Because of the girl?" I nodded. She said Inez made them look bad. No one spoke for a few seconds. Triz didn't ask for more details. She just said very softly, "How can anyone say that about a child?" And that was the problem. It wasn't just a phone call, it wasn't just Christmas Eve, it was a whole life of understanding late and wrong. What was my place? "I have a sister," I said, because I had already started. Sandra was always the perfect daughter. Sandra never caused trouble because she never had to ask for anything. They gave it to her. When she got good grades, my parents celebrated her. When I got good grades, they told me, "Good, keep it up, up." If Sandra cried, the house adjusted itself around her. If I cried, my mom would say, "Don't start." As adults, Sandra married Arturo. My parents approved of him immediately. He wore iron shirts, shook hands, laughed at my dad's jokes, and knew how to please people. Then Emilio and Paula were born, and my parents became grandparents of cookie-cutter photos, posts, and quotes about blessings. They took Emilio to the park. They bought Paula dresses for school parties. They told me to let them know in advance if I needed anything because they had their own things to do. When Emilio was born, my mom announced it as if an heir had arrived. When Inés was born, she said, "That's going to be difficult." I didn't tell Beatriz everything that day, but I told her enough. I told her that Inés's father had been charming in public and cruel in private, that one day I stuffed clothes in a backpack, put Inés in the car, and drove to my parents' house because I thought that's what family was for. I imagined my mom opening the door and saying, "You're safe now." The first thing she said was, "Are you sure?" My dad looked at me half asleep, as if I had arrived with a problem he didn't know where to put. "He seemed like a good man," my mom said. "You have always been very sensitive." I told them what I could. My mom replied, "Don't be dramatic." They let us stay. For years, I used that to justify the rest. I told myself that, in the end, they had opened the door for us, but living there felt like being a guest even inside the house. My mom would sigh when Inés cried. My dad would watch TV while I spoke. If I said I was relieved to have left, my mom would say, "Families work things out. You don't just leave like that." I would think, "Yes, you do just leave." But I didn't say it. One day my mom told me that some people from the church and some neighbors were coming over. "Why don't you take Inés for a walk?" she said. It wasn't to help us, it was because she didn't want to explain who we were. I took Inés to the park and pushed her on the swing while she laughed, not knowing we were in hiding. I told myself it was temporary. Everything was temporary, until it wasn't anymore. I looked for work as if my life depended on it. My parents didn't kick me out, but they'd ask, "What is your plan?" "You can't stay here forever. It's not good for you to stagnate." When I was offered a job in Querétaro, I hesitated. It was stable but far away. Visiting family would mean flights, permissions, and luggage. "I think I should look for something here," I said in the kitchen. My mom didn't even blink. A job is a job. You're not in a position to choose. It's not in your best interest to turn it down. My dad added. Besides, she concluded, you can't stay here forever. So I accepted. I moved, built a life far away, telling myself it was independence. In part it was. I rented a small apartment. I learned to budget every expense and make the weekends last, but I also left, because in that house there was no room for me anymore. By then, The legal side with Inez's father was settled enough that the school had me as the primary contact. He had been out of our daily lives for a while. Even so, I kept track of every paper, every permit, and every signature because I knew how easy it was for other adults to decide for a child without listening to her. Niece kept asking about her grandparents. At school, other children talked about theirs. She wanted to belong. That's why, when my mom said Inez made us look bad, it didn't just hit me, it hit her too. And that was the limit. I could handle what they made me feel, but I wasn't gonna let Inez believe she had to make herself small to deserve love. Beatrice listened without interrupting me. In the end, she looked toward the girls. Inez was laughing for the first time since the call. "We are having dinner at home tomorrow," Beatrice said. "I don't know the whole story, and you don't need to tell me today. But if you have nowhere to go, come over." "Thank you," I replied. "I don't know if that's a good idea." Guillermo smiled faintly. "There's always extra food." Jimena took out her phone. "Let me give you my number. Think about it calmly. No one is going to pressure you." Beatrice added, "And a dinner with children playing is usually better than a dinner with adults pretending." I didn't accept because I wasn't afraid. I accepted because Inez deserved a Christmas Eve where she wasn't treated like a problem. Beatrice's house smelled of turkey, punch, cinnamon, and apple salad. There was a long table, mismatched chairs, and napkins folded without much perfection. Nothing looked like a magazine, and maybe that's why it felt alive. Guillermo opened the door as if they were actually expecting us. "They're here," he said. "No," he said, "come in if you'd like." "No," he said, "I'm so glad you decided to come." He said it as if our place was already set. Niece stayed hidden behind me, hugging her fox. Then Mia appeared. "You came?" Inez's shoulders dropped a little. Beatrice placed a mug of punch in my hands. "Choose wherever you like. The kitchen is over there. You're not staying alone tonight." Mia took Inez by the hand, and the two of them disappeared toward a room with toys. I stayed in the entryway with my coat on, not knowing what to do with so much normalcy. No one asked me why I wasn't with my family. No one looked at Inez like a complicated story. They just made room for us between the dishes and the voices. Then my phone vibrated. It was a social media post. There were my parents sitting at the table with Sandra, Arturo, Emilio, and Paula. Everyone smiling. Everyone dressed up. The perfect Christmas Eve photo. The caption said something about thanking God for family and grandchildren. Comments. Hearts, what a beautiful family. Blessings. There was no mention of me. There was no mention of Inez. Not even a polite lie like "we miss you, we miss you." They had put Emilio on my dad's lap and Paula next to my mom right in the center of the photo. The image was clean. That was the point. They had erased us. I put my phone away and went into the kitchen. Beatrice saw my face and didn't ask. She just pushed a plate toward me. "Sit. Eat while it's hot." I didn't cry. I had already cried too many times for people who would later use my tears to call me dramatic. That night I made a silent decision. Niece wasn't going to struggle to be loved by someone ever again. During dinner, Inez leaned over to me and asked very quietly, "Mom, do you think Grandma will ever love me?" My fork remained suspended. Across the table, Beatrice didn't look up, but I knew she heard. "You are not the problem," I told her. "Never." Inez nodded as if she wanted to believe me. Jimena passed her a dinner roll. "You got the golden brown one." No pity. No making her feel watched. Just a simple gesture. "You are here. We see you. We include you." After that Christmas Eve, my parents didn't write. Neither did I. Weeks passed, then months. It wasn't a dramatic break. It was a silence that made one thing clear: if I didn't show up to be corrected, no one was coming to find me. Meanwhile, Sunday meals at Beatrice and Guillermo's house became a routine at 5 o'clock almost always. At first I asked every week if we were still on, as if expecting them to change their minds at any moment. Beatrice eventually told me, "Norma, If there's no dinner one Sunday, I'll let you know. In the meantime, just come. Inés's drawings appeared on the refrigerator. A cup of hers stayed in the cupboard. Mia saved her a seat without anyone asking her to. Guillermo asked her about school and waited for the real answer. Well, one Sunday, Inés spilled apple juice on the table. I tensed up by reflex, expecting the sigh, the reproach, the, "Oh, Norma." Beatriz grabbed a cloth. "It's a table," she said. "It survived worse things." Guillermo nodded seriously. In 1998, I spilled sauce on my mother-in-law's favorite tablecloth. The family survived. Inés laughed. I did too. And the strange thing was that no one used that accident to remind me that I was alone, that raising a child was hard, or that I should be grateful they put up with me. And one day something happened that left me breathless. Inés ran into the kitchen, opened her arms, and shouted, "Grandma Beatriz." I waited for the correction. I waited for the awkwardness. Beatriz turned, opened her arms, and said, "Come here, my girl." Guillermo looked up from his newspaper. "Hello, little one." Smiled as if they had just given her something back. I locked myself in the bathroom for a minute. My eyes were full of tears and a quiet rage. That's when I understood that loving Inés wasn't hard. My parents simply hadn't wanted to. That same week I made changes. Not out of impulse, not out of revenge. I went to see a lawyer. I removed my parents from the list of authorized persons at school and in Inés's medical file. I also set down my legal will. If someday a judge had to decide for her, I wanted Beatriz and Guillermo to be considered before my blood family. Not my parents, not Sandra, not Arturo. It was an adult decision, heavy and clear. Hand didn't tremble. I also grew closer to Jimena. Not with big promises, but with daily life. We took turns looking after the girls. We sent messages whenever one of us was exhausted. We used to laugh about how hard it was to make friends as adults without feeling like you were in an interview. One day, she invited me to a social group for single moms and dads at a community center. "The kids play," she said. The adults tried to socialize. It sounded awkward, but I went. That's where I met Cesar. He arrived with his son, Leo, a boy with spiky hair and a serious look as if he were evaluating if the place had good cookies. Cesar wasn't flashy. He didn't talk over others or crack jokes to get attention. He was just attentive. He held the door for a mom with a stroller, picked up a spilled cup, and greeted Inés by crouching down to look her in the eye. It didn't happen all at once. First it was small talk while the kids played, then coffees after. The group. Then a text to ask if Inés felt any better from her cough. Cesar became part of the routine, then part of our lives. As and Leo teamed up quickly. Mia was still her accomplice on Sundays. Beatriz and Guillermo were no longer just nice people we met at an ice cream shop. They were family. A little over a year after that call on the road, my life didn't look like it used to. Cesar and I decided to get married without rushing. A simple wedding surrounded by the people who had actually been there. Inés was 7 now. She had peaceful Sundays, friends who loved her, and adults who didn't make her feel like an extra. My family had been silent all that time. That's why, when my mom's name appeared on the screen, I stared at it as if it could bite me. Cesar looked up. "Everything okay? Depends on what she says." I answered, "Norma," my mom said, with the same controlled voice from the road. "I heard you were getting married." Yes, there was a pause, and we sent an invitation. I took a slow breath. "You aren't invited." The silence was long. "What do you mean we aren't invited?" "Exactly that. We are your parents. You were also my parents the day you called to say my daughter was an embarrassment." "Don't start," she warned. "No, Mom. This time I'm not letting it go." She hung up. Then came the pressure. Calls, messages, relatives who hadn't reached out to me in years. "You can't not invite your parents. Family is family. Your mom is very upset." I explained just once. They rejected Inés. I heard them. On the other end there was silence. Then someone tried to say that grandparents are sometimes wrong, that I should think about the future, that children forget quickly. I replied with just one thing. Inés didn't forget. I didn't explain any further. Sandra sent a message. You're being dramatic, that's why. Nobody can deal with you. I didn't answer. Then an audio message from my mom arrived. We are going anyway. You cannot stop us from being at our daughter's wedding. Caesar listened to it with his jaw clenched. You're not crazy, he told me. Remind me when I forget. We spoke with the venue coordinator and paid for extra security. One rule. Nobody was to go near Inés. The wedding day arrived. I was getting ready with Jimena, who was struggling with a curling iron. Beatriz was adjusting Inés's dress. Guillermo was nearby, pretending he wasn't excited. Inés did a spin. I look elegant? Jimena looked at her with affection. You look ready to eat all the cake. Inés opened her eyes wide. As much as they let you. Beatrice smiled. Our little girl. Then the coordinator entered. Her face spoke before she did. Norma, your parents are here. Also your sister, her husband, and the children. My pulse started racing. Caesar appeared at my side. Do you want them kicked out? I looked at Inés. Her light dress, her small bracelet, her face as a child who was still healing from a wound she didn't ask for. I wasn't going to allow a scene in front of her. I didn't say to let them in. Last row. Far away from Inés. I don't want shouting at the door or my daughter scared before the ceremony. If they move toward her, stop them. The coordinator nodded. We had notified the venue. A guard would keep an eye on them from the moment they entered. Guillermo offered me his arm. His hand was steady. That was the point. When the music started, I looked toward the back. There they were, my mom stiff, my dad hunched in his seat, Sandra inspecting the room as if she were going to grade it, Arturo leaning back as if he belonged, Emilio, and Paula bored, not understanding why they were there, me. My father did not stand up. Guillermo, yes. Guillermo took me by the arm as if it were an honor, as if I mattered, as if I weren't, occupying a borrowed space. Cesar was waiting at the front with his eyes fixed on me. Gaze said what I had taken years to believe. I choose you, and your daughter, and we got married? I saw them at the back. For the first time, they weren't the center of anything. At the reception, Inés was safe at the kids' table with Mia and Leo. She had a plate of pasta, a napkin on her dress, and the focused look of someone deciding which candy to eat first. That was the only thing that mattered to me. Later, the sound technician tapped the microphone. May I have your attention for a moment? I felt my stomach tighten. It wasn't fear. I had planned that part. I took the microphone. Thank you for being here. I looked around the room. There were people who had truly come out of love. Then I said it clearly and calmly. Last year, a phone call left us out of Christmas Eve dinner. My daughter was told she was an embarrassment. A complete silence fell. That call didn't take a family away from us. I continued. It showed us where we didn't have one. I turned toward Beatriz and Guillermo. Beatriz, Guillermo, you made room for us when you had no obligation to. You loved Inés without treating her like a burden, without asking her to be less of a child to deserve affection. You loved her as she is, and that changed our lives. The room erupted in applause. Beatriz stood up, overwhelmed. Guillermo was by her side, with shining eyes. I looked at Jimena. And you, Jimena, became the sister I needed. Not by promising anything, just by being there. There was more applause. Then I looked toward the back. Mom was pale. Sandra looked stunned. Arturo was no longer smiling. My dad was looking at his hands. I saw Paula lean toward Emilio, confused. And for a second it hurt that the children were there, but I also understood that I hadn't created that scene. I had only stopped hiding it. The color had drained from their faces, because now the room knew. They could no longer keep pretending that nothing had happened. I handed over the microphone and returned to Cesar. For a moment, I breathed like I hadn't breathed in years. Then my mom pushed her way through the crowd. What did you just say? She said to me in a low voice. Honestly, you humiliated us. No, you humiliated a 6-year-old girl. I only said what you did. Her eyes flared up. She is my granddaughter. You rejected her. We didn't reject her. Enough, I said. The words stopped her. You said she was an embarrassment. She heard you. I am not going to argue reality with you at my wedding. My mom pursed her lips. You can't keep her away from us. We have rights. That's when I let out what I had been preparing for months. I had set down my legal wishes. If a judge ever has to decide for a niece, you will not appear as my first choice. My mom stood motionless. What? You aren't on any important documents, not at school, not on medical permits, not in my legal will. My dad looked up with teary eyes. Sandra was furious. My mom turned toward where Inez was. Inez, she called out, in a sweet voice that made me angrier than a shout. Come here, my love. The guard stepped in immediately. Guillermo took a step too. Calm, firm. Jimena was already leading Inez away, and Beatriz joined them with that practical calm that protects without making a sound. My mom's voice rose. She's my granddaughter. It's my family. Guillermo spoke quietly. Not today. I looked at my mom and, for the first time, I didn't feel like convincing her of anything. I don't hate you, I said. But I'm not putting my daughter in your hands anymore. Then I looked at the security staff. Please, escort them to the exit. They took them out. There were no long screams or movie-style fights. Just hurried footsteps, murmurs, and my mom turning back every few meters as if she still believed her sadness should dictate my reaction. I didn't go after her. I approached Inez and knelt in front of her. Are you okay? Inez frowned. That was Grandma? I took a slow breath. Yes, but she couldn't come near you today. Inez thought for a few seconds, then asked, Can I eat cake now? I let out a shaky laugh. Of course you can. I went back to my wedding. The next morning, my phone was full of messages. Almost all of them talked about respect, about family, about how bad it looked to kick parents out of a wedding. Almost no one mentioned Inez. I deleted them. Then, a message arrived from my Aunt Diana, a sister of my dad's whom I rarely spoke to. They told me what happened. I'm proud of you. Protect Inez. You're doing the right thing. I stared at the screen for a while, then typed, Thank you. And for the first time in my life when I thought I am free, I truly felt it.